Armor has historically been associated with power, bravery, and strength. It's no surprise, then, that so many men have coveted the chance to wear it. Queens throughout history were often seen as symbols of wealth and regality rather than active participants in battle. However, there have been some notable exceptions. Today, we are going to look at some of these remarkable queens who chose to don armor and fight alongside their people. Welcome to my channel. And today, let's find out about the queen who wore armor into battle. Joan of Arc is considered a national heroine in France and a saint in the Catholic Church. She's best known for her role during the 100 Years' War, a conflict between England and France that lasted from 1337 to 1453. During this time, England had managed to conquer much of northern France, and it seemed likely they would eventually take the entire country. But everything changed when a young peasant girl named Joan appeared before the French royal court claiming to be chosen by God. She said she had a divine mission to drive the English out of France and restore the French king, Charles VII, to his throne. At first, the court dismissed her claims, but Joan persisted. Eventually, the king agreed to hear her out and allowed her to raise an army. With God on her side, Joan led the French army to victory, culminating in the liberation of a key city that had been under siege by the English. Her military successes turned the tide of the war and led to the coronation of Charles VII. In Reims, despite opposition from within his own family. Crowned Charles VII in 1429, Joan's influence over him was so great that she even accompanied him into battle. On September 1430, Joan was captured by the Burgundians, who sold her to the English. They put her on trial for heresy and witchcraft and sentenced her to death. She was burned at the stake on May 30th, 1431, at the age of 19. Joan of Arc was not the only queen who fought in armor. There were many others throughout history who did the same. Let's now look at two of them. Queen Tamar of Georgia. Tamar was the queen of Georgia from 1184 to 1200. She was the daughter of King George III and his wife, Queen Taban. Tamar came to power when her husband, David Sasthenes, died in 1184. She was a strong and capable ruler who oversaw a period of peace and prosperity in Georgia. However, she faced several challenges during her reign. One of the most significant threats to Tamar's rule came from her own son, David, who rebelled against her in 1190. David was defeated and blinded, but he continued to plot against his mother. In 1195, David escaped to the kingdom of Armenia and returned to Georgia with an army. He was again defeated and killed in battle. This left Tamar with no legitimate heir, and she was forced to name her grandson, Vladimir, as the new king. When Vladimir came of age, Tamar retired to a monastery and died in 1200. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo. Queen Nzinga of Ndongo was born around 1583 in the kingdom of Ndongo in present-day Angola. Her father was King Ngola Kiloanji, and her mother was a local princess. From a young age, Nzinga showed intelligence and leadership skills, which led to her being chosen as the next ruler of Ndongo. Nzinga's rise to power coincided with a time of great upheaval in Angola. The Portuguese had established a slave trade on the coast, and Ndongo was one of the main suppliers of slaves. Nzinga was determined to resist the Portuguese and protect her people. She used her knowledge of both European and African cultures to her advantage, negotiating treaties with the Dutch and the British. She also built up a strong army and navy, which she used to raid Portuguese settlements. Despite her best efforts, Nzinga was eventually captured by the Portuguese and imprisoned. She died in 1663 after a long and storied life. These are just two examples of the many brave queens who have resisted oppression and fought for their people. Like Tamar and Nzinga, there have been countless other women throughout history who have challenged the status quo and made a positive impact on the world. Although many of these women as stories have been lost to time or deliberately erased by those in power, their legacies live on in the hearts and minds of those who continue to fight for justice and equality today. Now let's look at why these queens chose to wear armor into battle. Women throughout history have often been denied the opportunity to participate in politics and decision-making processes, being relegated to the domestic sphere and expected to focus on traditional gender roles such as childbearing and homemaking. However, some women have challenged these norms and made significant contributions to society, despite facing opposition and discrimination. Queen Tamar of Georgia and Queen Nzinga of Ndongo are two such examples. Both queens ruled their respective kingdoms in the absence of male heirs, and both were highly intelligent and capable leaders. They each employed diplomacy and military tactics to defend their people and expand their territories. Despite the fact that these queens were highly effective leaders, their actions were often met with skepticism and resistance from those around them. In both cases, the queens had to prove themselves in a male-dominated world and overcome challenges that were specifically designed to test their abilities and reinforce gender norms. For example, when Queen Nzinga took power in Angola, she was seen as a threat by the Portuguese who controlled the slave trade in the region. They attempted to limit her power and influence through a series of treaties that were designed to control her access to resources and restrict her ability to govern. Similarly, Queen Tamar faced opposition from members of her own court, who believed that a woman's place was in the home and not in the affairs of state. She was criticized for her unconventional behavior, such as her choice to wear men's clothing and her willingness to engage in political intrigue. Despite these challenges, both queens demonstrated remarkable strength, intelligence, and resilience. They used their power to protect their people and expand their kingdoms, proving that women could be just as capable leaders as men. Queen Nzinga, for example, built up a strong military force and navy and successfully raided Portuguese settlements, inflicting heavy losses on her enemies. Queen Tamar, meanwhile, implemented a series of reforms that modernized the Georgian state and made it more efficient. She also played a crucial role in ending a civil war that had torn the kingdom apart. In addition to their military and political achievements, both queens also made significant cultural contributions to their societies. Queen Nzinga, for example, was a skilled diplomat and negotiator, and she worked to forge alliances with other African kingdoms as well as with European powers. Queen Tamar, meanwhile, was a patron of the arts, and she helped to promote the development of Georgian literature and architecture. Despite the fact that Queen Tamar and Queen Nzinga lived in different times and places, they shared many similarities. Both were highly intelligent and capable leaders who defied the expectations of their societies and made significant contributions to their respective kingdoms. They both used a combination of diplomacy and military force to achieve their goals, and they both faced significant opposition and discrimination along the way. The decision to wear armor into battle was not an easy one. It required a high level of physical fitness and stamina, as well as a great deal of training and skill. However, for these queens, it was a necessary one if they were going to protect their people and defend their kingdoms. In a world where women were often seen as weak and helpless, these queens showed that they were strong and capable warriors who were more than capable of holding their own in battle. By wearing armor into battle, these queens were not only showcasing their physical strength, but also sending a message to their enemies that they would not be intimidated or defeated easily. Overall, these queens serve as an inspiration to women everywhere who have ever felt that they were not being taken seriously or that they were not capable of achieving their goals. They demonstrate that with hard work, determination, and a refusal to give up in the face of adversity, women can achieve anything they set their minds to. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and commenting down below. We will see you next time.